and welcome on this wintry morning to the Fellowship of Beer. What is the Fellowship of Beer? It's a unique beer subscription box that puts the choices of the brewing, the creations that we are making in the hands of the members. It's a very unique system. So today is a perfect example of that. On our group forum, private forum, a member put forward the idea of making a smoked beer. There was some traction, different people discussed different types of smoked beer and smoked beers they'd enjoyed in the past. So what we did is we compiled a poll for the members, said, okay, what type of smoked beer would you like us to brew? Polish Grodziskie, apologies, I'm not Polish, a Rauch beer, or a smoked porter. The members voted. I then asked them, what kind of wood would you like us to smoke the malt with? So we're going to smoke our own malt, and they voted. I gave them choices of apple wood, different flavours from different woods, and they chose birch wood. And so now I'm setting about how to smoke the malt, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to convert my homebrew system and an old stove into smoking some malt. So let's get started and see how it goes. So all I'm doing is, this is the base of an old keg that's previously been used as a homebrew setup. I'm going to put as many holes through it as I can until my drill bits run out. And then the smoke, this is going to be filled with the malt. We're going to pass smoke through the underneath, and it's going to hopefully infuse that lovely birch smoke flavour into the malt. Alright, so I have drilled lots of holes in here until my drill bits all broke, went through quite a few. It's not going to be one of those videos where I put a product list of recommended drill bits because they were all equally naff. So there we are, I've cleaned it out. This is an old wood burning stove that we use in here. I've just moved the chimney over, and I'm going to stick this on top. This is where the malt's going to be filled. And we're going to see, first of all, what the smoke is like, what kind of coverage we get. If I can get smoke coming through all these holes, then we'll fill it with the malt, and yeah, we'll get started. This is the lovely birch wood that came out of my sister's garden when they had a mysterious fire and the fire brigade had to come. Anyway, salvaged birch wood. It's been dried for a year and a half, and that's what we're going to use. It should impart a lovely kind of caramelly kind of flavour. If you've ever had birch sap, for whatever reason, it's a lovely sweet sugary maple syrup type flavour. Well, we definitely have smoke. We'll let the flames die down, we'll add the birch, and we'll put the malt inside, and then we'll begin to smoke it. So the fire is away. Our kindling and some hardwood I put in earlier has nearly died down. So what I'm waiting for, I'm just waiting for the smoke to start dissipating a little bit so we get the heat off the charcoals, which then we can start adding our silver birch to. I don't really want the smoke from the other woods coming through too much, otherwise it's going to kind of spoil the experiment. So what we're looking for, smoke to die down. When we get the birch on, that'll produce its own smoke, which will rise up through the malt. So the grains we have today, we've got some torrefied wheat. Torrefied wheat is not malted at all, it's been kiln dried. We've got some extra pale Otter, which is a really good base to use for whatever we want to do pale beer wise. and I've got some malted wheat as well. So the difference between malted and torrefied is malted has had a germination process. They've wet the barley in advance. They've allowed it to sprout. This activates different enzymes in the malt, which are really important for making beer. They come in useful later for when we want the sugars. So these two of these grains that I'm going to use, they have been malted. And then they've been dried. So the reason that smoked beers exist in the first place is due to inferior drying practices for the malt. So in the old days, whenever they were, people were using all sorts to dry the malt. They were drying it with brushwood, they were drying it with all sorts. So what you have is you have regional differences in malts produced in different areas. If you look at whiskey from the islands, you get very peated whiskey, and that's because peat has traditionally been used in that process to dry the malted barley. Peat is, prehistoric soil which has been dried out in clods, of which there is plenty of in the Isles of Scotland and around that area. Lowland whiskies aren't peaty at all, and that's because they would have been using woods and things to dry their barley. What we're doing is kind of reverse engineering the kind of flavour of smoke that would have naturally been produced from using these woods to dry malts to create smoked malt. So our malt is already prepared, so I'm going to wet it, mix it up a bit. Apparently the wetness, it'll help the smoke absorb and cling to the grains. Now there's a lot of conflicting advice online of whether you should use dried wood or wet wood, and if you should soak the wood wet. Personally, I think that's counterintuitive, because you're going to produce more steam, and the wood's still going to have to raise high enough to its flash point to start burning to produce smoke. Otherwise it's just steam rising up. So there's a lot of malt is going to go into this barrel, as much as we can fit, and having that, it's going to cool itself down anyway. So we're doing a kind of semi-hot, semi-cold smoke, bit of a mix between the two. I've got some birch twigs from the brewery. There's a birch tree just outside the brewery roller shutter, outside steam machine, so we're going to use that as well. So different areas, different types of smoked beers have developed. So really interestingly, the Grodziskie that we're brewing is a Polish style of beer, and that would have had that was oak smoked. So there's not many historical records to the levels of smokiness. It's just a character of their malt, how they were drying it. The same as in Bamberg. So Bamberg beers, the Rauch beers and stuff like that, they were being dried with wood. Beech wood has been used in the drying process. It smoked the malt and created flavour. And now it's a character that we're looking for, so people are probably accentuating it far more than it would have been in the days of old. So let's get started. So we're in the evening now. We've been
marshmallow toasting,
smoking the malt all day, and it's time for dessert. What are we eating today?
Marshmallows!
The malt all finished smoking late into the night. It's then been left in the Hessian sacks just for some of that harshness to dissipate, and it apparently leaves a more mellow flavour. And today is brewed here. So we're just sorting the malt out and we're about to mash in. That's adding the hot water to the malt and it's going to fill the whole room with delicious smells. This beer has finished its fermentation, it's been primed, it's been bottled, so this is slightly sweeter than it's going to taste when it's finished. I'm hoping that it ends up with quite a high carbonation, so it will be champagne-like in its pour. But for now, you can smell the smoke straight away. It's a lovely smoke. There is a kind of hint of caramelly smoke, which we were expecting from the birch. But yeah, campfire through and through. I'm really excited to see what this beer is like when it's carbonated. And here we are. Let's try the Grodziskie. I'm not going to attempt to upset any Polish people we may have watching this, but the name of the beer voted for by the fellowship, suggested by the fellowship, was the Polish word for birch. So here's our label, here's our beer. It's bottled, it's conditioned, and it's ready to go. This has been carved quite highly, so we're expecting it to go with a lovely fizz. Straight away those bubbles are lifting up that bottle, and let's give it a pour. I've opted for a Belgian straight glass. It's the closest thing I've got to a Grodziskie glass, and look at that. That is, you can see the bubbles cascading up the glass there. You can see the lovely, dense, fluffy white head. And I can just smell that sweet birch wood that reminds me of that day back in winter, when just after New Year, when we started this process together. It's also got a lovely little bit of malt sweetness to it, not in kind of a crystally or like a stout kind of malt sweetness. That little bit of almost like a Helles kind of quality to it as well on the nose. Wow. For such a small little beer that doesn't have pack a punch of flavour, that's just tickling my taste buds everywhere. The difference in this beer from when it was just bottled compared to today, it is lighter, it's lifted. Those bubbles just help everything dance around the palate. It's accentuated the bitterness a little bit, but that's no bad thing. It is a bitter beer, but it's it's extremely refreshing. I could see myself getting nicely merrily underway with quite a few of these while I was slowly cooking the barbecue in summer. So I'm going to have to stash a few away to enjoy. I'm really pleased with this. To say that this project just came about from a forum discussion by the Fellowship of Beer members, and this is the beer we've ended up with, something completely unique that, as far as I know, has never been made before. And that's what the Fellowship of Beer is about. If you are not involved yet, then head over to fellowshipofbeer.org and sign up so that you can enjoy creating tasty beers like everyone else is doing. So our tagline is, why should brewers have all the fun? And I hope you agree that this process has been a lot of fun, especially now. Cheers everyone.